Coming. Alicia, do we have a quorum, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Contreras is present. Councilmember Fantant is present. Councilmember Runenbaum is absent. Mayor Moss is here. Councilmember Young is present, and Councilmember Crummell is present.
Thank you. Would you all stand? Would you please observe a moment of silence with me, please? Thank you. And we'll join City Manager Brian Grimes as he leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Alicia, do we have any public comments, please?
No, sir.
Thank you. First item is to approve the minutes of our October 13th meeting. Do we have a motion, please?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the special called and the regular meeting from October 13th.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 1, agenda items. To consider and act on approving the real property exchange agreement with the Willow Park Baptist Church for the new wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you should have a packet that City Attorney Chesser has provided to you guys. We got this this afternoon. I know that Pat has been working closely with Marcella Olson the last couple of weeks and months to develop a property swap agreement or a real property exchange agreement, as in that vernacular. I think Pat has done a good job of trying to meet the requirements that we put on him a couple of weeks ago, or months ago now, I guess. And Pat, I'll let you get into the particulars.
All right. Well, for Tyler's sake, since he was not here when we put this out for bid, you may have been kept up with it, but at the end of the day, we put out a bid package that sought to exchange our existing tract of property where we have our existing sewer plant, which is about a 6.35 acre tract. And we put it out for bid for an exchange of another tract that would be perhaps more appropriate for our future plant. And Willow Park Baptist Church stepped up and offered to exchange their 8.6 acre tract for ours. And so what I put together today, and this is part of our bid package, that we have to come to agreement with the church on a real property exchange agreement. Ms. Olson, who represents the church, had submitted a draft contract with the bid. And so we've been working the past few weeks on getting this contract agreed to and negotiated, and to fill in any gaps that we might have had. And I think we're finished. Do you agree, Ms. Olson? Okay. And so I'd like to kind of walk you through it. I'm not going to go through it all. It's a large document, part of which is the lease agreement that we will enter into. But essentially, what we're going to do, and I'll start with this timeline, is we're going to swap our 6.35 acre tract for their 8.6 acre tract. To start the process, we've got to approve this agreement. We're going to have the date of the agreement will be November 1st. It's going to start our time period. We'll then have 20 days, both sides will have 20 days to provide a title commitment for their tract of property to each other. Then 30 business days after November 1st, we're going to provide a survey, which I think we already have, so we should be able to do that pretty quickly. And then a phase 2 environmental study of our property. They're going to provide a phase 2 environmental of their property. And so that way both of us can figure out if there's any kind of environmental concerns that would affect our decision to make the swap. Then basically we'll have a period of time to review this information and make any objections to it if it does not meet or is not acceptable to us. During that time, we'll have what we call a 60 business day inspection period. And during that period of time, we'll be able to determine, look at all the surveys, the environmental studies, and determine whether or not we want to proceed forward. Both sides have the right to terminate the agreement prior to the end of the 60 business day inspection period. Then, within 60 days after we get our Texas Water Development loan, we should close on it when, Derek? Around March maybe?
Yeah, around the 1st of March,
Okay.
be the projection.
Once we close on that loan, then we'll have to close on this transaction within 60 days. And so we'll have set a closing on it. Some of the prerequisites or conditions preceding to closing are we're going to have to rezone our existing 6.35 acre tract to commercial, which we'll go ahead and do that right now and start the process on it. And so basically, when we close, we also will sign a 3-year lease of our property from the church. So we'll continue to stay in our existing property for 3 years while we build the new plant. Significant obligations for us. At the end of the lease agreement, we have to demolish the existing sewer treatment plant, remove all the pipelines from the ground, conduct a new phase 2 environmental study to tell them, show them that we don't have any environmental hazards. If there's any hazards, we've got to remediate those. And essentially, we'll blade the ground, make it level it up, and turn it over to them. And we'll be in our new plant at that time. So that's kind of the timeline and the key obligations. Again, this is our first step to get the process going. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So this can be terminated by either party
Yes, sir.
within a 20-day period?
There's a 60
60
business
days,
days
60 days.
inspection period.
Okay.
So,
And you said we would start the process for rezoning the existing, like the 6.35 at this point.
yes.
But obviously that process takes 3 or 4 months, so,
No, probably 2 months.
okay.
2 months.
So prior to this all being completed, we will rezone it?
Well, no, we'll just go ahead and rezone it commercial. It's a
Okay.
sewer plant, so
It doesn't matter?
it doesn't matter for us what the zoning
Okay.
is. It came in, as my understanding, annexed, so it was default R1 zoning. So right
Okay.
now, it's R1. Isn't that right, Bernie, I think?
Yes.
Okay,
So.
so it's probably a good idea to
Yeah,
rezone it
it
anyway.
is.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
that won't hurt. We'll start that right now.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
We've already talked to Betty about that process, so.
Pat, question. When you said removing of all existing pipes, what about potential pipe from our, would be the new plant if we were able to get there to potential north affluent locations?
That's a good question. We will, except for the effluent pipeline that will be in an easement that
Okay.
they're going to grant us, as well as we'll have our raw sewage line will go from the existing plant down to the new plant.
Perfect.
And we may have some utilities as well in that to serve the plant. So we're going to have some of the utilities potentially in JD Toll Road. Is that correct?
Yes. That's water and possibly electricity.
So.
And one more question. I don't know if you're able to answer this or not. The dollar amount for the lease, is it a monthly or yearly or a 3-year? Is it?
No, it's just a nominal $5 a month,
Okay.
a year fee, I think, a year, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
$5 a year?
basically, they're leasing it back to us so we can do this, so, that's just a nominal consideration for it.
If the phase 2 goes into that 60-day effective period, let's say it takes longer, do we get the grace period or do we have to renegotiate the timeline at that point?
Well, we have a 60-day inspection period, so as long as
Okay.
we get it done, if there's any delays for any reasons, weather, anything like that, we'll probably agree to extensions of these timelines. Wouldn't you agree with that, Marcelo?
I can't imagine it'd take more than 2 months, right?
No, I think Derek and his firm does the phase 2, so we can get them going pretty quick.
Okay.
We should be able to get it done in 2 months.
To the best of your knowledge, Derek, how long has that sewer plant been there?
Late 80s, I believe.
Okay.
So 30 years.
What was the tract before that? Do we know?
What was the property? before
Yes,
It was
But-
that?
Dorothy,
No, it was just ag. I mean, it was,
just ag.
yeah.
it was Dorothy Erie's property.
Okay, any other questions for Derek Pat? I appreciate everyone's work on this.
Right.
Marcella, thank you, and Pat and Derek,
Thank you.
they're all concerned. Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the real property exchange agreement with the Willow Park Baptist Church for the new wastewater treatment plant.
Do we have a-
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And thank you again to Willow Park Baptist Church and Pastor Bozier for their help in this also. Item number 2, to consider and act on drainage project on Sam Bass Road. Derek?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a property, it's on Sam Bass, I believe the address is 1118. It's on the south side of Sam Bass, about, I think it's the third house up, oh, good, we're good. Yeah, it's the third house up from Ranch House on the south side. There's a drainage channel that runs north and south that goes beside this house. The gentleman is having some drainage problems. There's not much of a ditch profile there. It's very flat, and there's a slight ditch, roadside ditch. And he's got water that comes from the east down Sam Bass and overruns and goes through his drive and into his backyard, and then I think in his front yard as well. And he's wanting to put in a concrete flume in the bottom of that channel. And the reason for that is because there is such a slight ditch section, in order to create more of a ditch section, it would have to be lowered. And lowering it would also flatten it. And so grass line ditch that flat would not perform very well. So a concrete pilot channel in the bottom of that ditch would resolve that issue and keep that water in the ditch and keep it from running over into his driveway. So,
Derek,
Yes.
so there's a major drainage,
yeah,
and you're saying it's not that area, you're a few
It's-
houses over? Okay.
it's in
so
front of his house.
It's not making it to that. So
Right.
It's basically supposed to go.
It's overrunning before he gets to that
Right,
point.
okay.
So I don't know if you all recall, but on the north side of Sam Bass there's a concrete line channel.
Yes.
And that's what he's talking about doing on this side. And so we looked at it, and I ran an estimate, about $15,000 to run it. We think it would have to go, or I believe it would have to go up to his neighbor's property driveway up here, because that ditch is going to have to be graded up to make it, to get the section. So it's going to have to go up probably that far, and it would be better anyway to go from culvert to culvert instead of stopping it midway. And that's about 375 feet, and again, and about a 3-foot wide pilot channel. And that estimate was about $15,000.
So it affects almost 4 houses there.
Yes.
And I wanted to make an amendment to the staff memo. When we were putting that together, we said the funds would come out of reserves. We actually have $20,000 budgeted for drainage projects in this year's budget. But $15,000 would cover that budget item.
Okay, any other questions for Derek? Do we have a motion?
So, all right, discussion there would be my question is, are you looking for us to request that you go out for bids on this? Or since it's well below that price, to just authorize that we,
I would think you would authorize 15,000.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get 2 or 3 quotes
Okay,
at least.
all right, I make a motion that we authorize up to $15,000 for the drainage project on Sam Bass Road.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions for Derek? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Item number 3, to consider and act on stormwater drainage study.
Thank you again. So you recall, back in August, we had presented the full study for a stormwater utility rate and a stormwater impact fee. And at that time, we had some discussion. The main thing that was brought up at that meeting was on the rate study portion of, on the impact fee portion of it. We had set that up on a connection basis for determining what that fee should be. And we went back and looked at that again and reconfigured that to put it on an impervious area basis. Thought that would be more of a reasonable way to assess that fee across the board for commercial, residential, different types of properties, because it accounted for that impervious area. So that's really the only change that was made to those two reports. I'll go through real briefly. I can answer any questions you guys want. I think you have a copy of the executive summary that we provided, and as well as the full report. But on the impact fee, just to kind of rehash, that is based on the capital improvement projects list that was developed with the drainage study that we did some time ago, and also the land use assumptions that were in your comprehensive plan. You take the total amount of capital improvements, you have to apply a factor to that based on the period that you're looking at. So for an impact fee, you have to look at no less or no more than a 10-year period. And so you have to prorate that basically over that from 2019 to 2029 in this case, as opposed to going out 40 years, say. And so that reduces that CIP total number somewhat. And then you also, you can only charge a 50% of that as actual impact fees. That's based on the state law that governs these. And so using that capital improvement program, which was $3.3 million, and then taking the eligible cost, which is that prorated cost for the time frame, was 1.8, and then applying the 50% credit that you have to apply for an impact fee, brought the total eligible cost down to $900,000. Divide that by your total service units, and that's based, in this case, when we went back and looked at the impervious area, we settled on a service unit size of 1,000 square foot of impervious area. So if it's a larger, then that would be a multiplier, obviously, and if it's smaller, likewise. But the total number of service units that we estimated in town based on the types of development you have was 25,911 stormwater service units, 1,000 square foot impervious area units. So you divide that 900,000 by that, and you come up with $34.74 per stormwater service unit as your impact fee. So
And that's per year?
that is an impact fee. So that's based
Okay.
on, that's for that's a development
Developer.
cost.
So that
And so-
1,000 square foot home would have that impact fee.
Right. The developer put in 50 homes, they were each 1,000 square feet.
Right.
Each one would be.
Okay.
So
What about the existing homes right now?
those would be accounted for in the rate.
Okay.
This would only be for new development. You
Okay.
can't back charge.
So impact is for new, rate is for existing.
Correct.
Okay.
So our recommended fee then is $34.74 per that 1,000 square foot unit. On the rate study, we didn't make any changes to that, but again, just a real brief recap. It's similarly based, it's based on a 1,500 square foot single family unit, or an SFU. That's kind of a typical, and we kind of looked at that as we did the report, but that's what we came up with. And that would be for residential. So if you had 3,000 square foot home, it would be twice the SFU count. For multifamily and industrial and institutional, it's based on the gross building square footage, because those buildings have a much larger footprint. And then for commercial, it's based on the impervious cover. And if you look in the executive session, and this comes directly out of the report as well, but there are calculators for each one of those types of development. So for instance, on a multifamily home, you've got the number of SFUs equal to the gross building square footage divided by that 1,500 base square foot unit. And in the case of multifamily, there's a 1.5 multiplier. That's to account for the parking and the larger impervious area. And then the others have their calculations similarly. And so in calculating the rate, we account for the O&M for a stormwater utility, and we also account for the debt service for the capital improvements that are not included in that development aspect of it. So, and it also accounts for any overage that we might have in the debt service. And so based on that and the projected number of accounts, which is 3,607, that again is based on the projections that were made in the CIP and those square foot units. It was $5.50 per SFU. So that's applied on a monthly basis to every account. And that projection, by the way, is based on, we base that on your water and your trash because not everybody in town has water, but so we had to account for that additional number of connections. But it would be billed as a utility fee or a utility rate on your utility bill. And so $5.50 per SFU, again, if it was a 3,000 square foot home, it'd be $11 per month. So that's a really fast recap, but were there questions?
Well, I guess what I'd like to clarify is that you've presented a study. That's step 2, I guess, and where
Correct.
we are in this. But this doesn't mean that we're instituting any of this. We go to a next phase as far
Right.
as a resolution or ordinance.
We'll have to have go ahead, public
Yeah,
hearing.
so you really have two processes here. They could probably, I assume, be
Concurrent.
kind of intercombined, but on the impact fee, you're required to have a hearing, and then you can implement the impact fee
Okay.
once the hearing is complete and council approves it. On the rate study, you would have to develop a utility or a stormwater utility ordinance.
Okay.
And then you'd go through the normal public hearing process for that. So,
And so, could you do one or the other, or does it not do you any good to do impact fee without?
You could do one or the other.
But we
If you want to fund a stormwater utility, you really need to be thinking about the rate. However, the debt service that, for what we proposed in the CIP, you really need both to cover that
To
total
be able to
debt.
get that.
So,
And my last question is, when we go to that ordinance, I say it's my last, we probably all know that's not true. When we go to developing the ordinance or accepting, doing the impact fees, can we change these numbers? If we accept this study today, does this mean that we are accepting those numbers as, or can we change them as we develop an ordinance? Although we would recognize that would mean that 3.3 million wasn't necessarily generated.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is probably yes.
Okay.
Anything whatever rate you settle on,
Okay,
technically it has to be supported by a study.
Okay.
So if we were to revise the study during this process, then you would have that documentation. So I assume you would do.
I think what she's asking is, we can come off the rate, so the residential rate of 550 or whatever it is, we could come off
Certainly,
that.
yes.
We just can't really go above it without a further justification.
That's correct.
but also if we come off it, we don't generate the.
You're not
number
generating, yeah.
That we put in our
So
study,
then,
so
at that
That's
point,
great, yeah. If you go lower,
Right.
then there's really,
then we're really not.
you're
yes.
bringing in less revenue, but at that point, I think we could reevaluate some projects and. you know,
Okay, that's true. You
I
can,
mean-
you
Yeah,
can
I
cut
mean,
the
pick and
3.3
choose what-
million and only do, yes,
Yeah.
that's, okay. I am done with questions.
I do want to bring this up just as a we had the previous agenda item was a relatively small one. But we have a number of projects like that throughout town that are not what we got some big ticket drainage items, don't get me wrong. But we do have several smaller drainage projects. And, we're not going to get, when we're only budgeting 20,000 for drainage projects, you get basically one, maybe two, maybe a culvert here and there for the rest of this year. And so we don't have a mechanism to fund these drainage projects like this. They keep coming and popping up. And so that's why we had the second agenda item to kind of let you guys know what we deal with on almost on a monthly basis. But the second one is, we need a revenue stream to help fund those projects. And that's what this is for.
What's the timeline on this? We start now, tonight, and before something actually goes into effect?
Your impact fee, you've got a 30-day notice period. So you have to publish notice and hold the hearing no less than 30 days from that point in time. So you could potentially implement that in a couple of months.
December.
I'm not sure about the time frame on an ordinance, but it's comparable. So
So we're looking probably first of the year or something like that.
Yes,
I would think so. You'd have 2 readings, I think, on an ordinance anyway, so, yeah.
it'd be January.
Okay.
So here's a question. Right now, there's 5 proposed rate structures on here. Would we consider possibly doing a 6 for folks that are over a certain age at a discounted rate?
Or like a 65 and older. Pat, can we do a rate structure like that with, or would we need to find another way in to do that? I take the point. I
I think I think it's something we really want to think about.
yeah,
Yeah, but you're not talking about a big ticket item here.
Yeah, but every dollar counts
I know,
for those.
golf balls, you have to buy golf balls.
I'll look into that, Brian. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm hesitant to go ahead and just sign off on a.
Right, I just
Yeah.
would really like us to consider that and look
No,
into it.
I definitely would, I definitely think it's worth looking into. I just
Okay.
don't want to give a definitive answer
Thanks.
right now on that.
And procedurally, that would just mean amending the study as we go through, like if that was something.
Well, I
To
mean,
include that.
you could, but again, you're talking about dropping
Right.
partially the numbers, so I don't think it would
Okay.
require a revision.
So, I mean, I'm just saying that that could be done as the process of formulating the
Sure,
ordinance
yes.
easily with that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, that we accept the stormwater drainage study as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any other questions for Derek?
My only comments would be that drainage is a big factor in making sure that we can get our roads fixed. It's very difficult for us to get our roads, our residential roads, in the shape they need to be with some of the drainage problems that we have. And it's far more cost-effective to do it in this way, take care of all the drainage projects as opposed to small. It's not as easy as a $10,000, $15,000 concrete flume for every project that we're looking at. And so I think that it's one of the most important things that we take care of our drainage so that we can start getting a solid program for roads.
And it's overdue.
It is, especially since, 2017, 2018, 2019, we had pretty heavy rains those years. I think we all saw the need for this.
Yes.
I didn't mention that our estimate is somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 per year. So,
Okay.
talking about the budget, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a motion, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say the most of the drainage projects are probably, I would say, north of, I don't want to say generally speaking, but, the newer developed areas, that way they already have the drainage in them. And so, to your point, a lot of the residential roads that are going to require repair, we need to get the drainage fixed.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 4, to consider and act on items to be considered for future council meetings.
I've got a couple of things. Keep in mind, I think I speak for everybody on the staff, and I'm pretty sure council would be unanimous in this. We're only going to have one meeting in November. I don't know a lot of people who want to meet on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And the same will be held true for the December meeting as well. We'll have one meeting in December. But for the November meeting, right now we got Jake Weber going to present the September financials, the end-of-year financials. I think Rose is going to try to do a communications update and kind of walk us through the new website. Some of the features that we are probably accustomed to, but maybe some of the other folks aren't, and want to kind of brag on some of the new things we got going over there. I think Betty Chu is going to have the zoning updates that we've been working on. I think she's going to present those. My understanding is that's going to go to the commission Or maybe it's gone to the commission. I'm looking at Bernie. But I think Betty will have some of the zoning updates. We may do a combined P and Z city council meeting. I still need to talk to her and see if we would want to do a joint one on that. And that's what I have for some future council meetings.
Okay. Item number 5, act on setting the date and time for the next council meeting. I think that's November the 10th. Is that correct? Tuesday, November the 10th at 7 PM?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any comments, Mr. Grimes?
No, sir. Keep warm out there.
I'd like to again thank Marcella. She left and Pat for their work on the land swap. It's a big day for our city to get that accomplished and done. I'm looking forward to the next 60 days of working and getting everything resolved. So Pat, thank you again for that. We have a motion to adjourn.
Just want to make sure everybody knows this is the last week of early voting, and then you have November, election day, excuse me, and so next Tuesday. So please get out there and vote. Let your voice be heard.
Totally agree. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to remind citizens we have the Halloween coming up, and I think everybody's still kind of trying to figure out how to navigate through this pandemic. And I just wanted to say, give your neighbors, friends, an extra measure of grace and respect as we're all handling this a little differently. Some people are going to be rushing up the doors, ready to shake hands. Others are going to need their space. So we're all handling this at different speeds and figuring it out kind of at our own paces. So like I said, just let's give our neighbors, our friends, our community an extra measure of respect and grace in the days ahead.
Thank you. Very good. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.